Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar on navigating toxic environments with Dr. Vanessa Gonzalez-Perez. This webinar is provided today by Purdue's College of Engineering Graduate Mentoring Fellows. And so to get us started, I want to introduce Dr. Vanessa Gonzalez-Perez. She received her bachelor's at the University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras, and then received her PhD in genetics and molecular biology at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. She has plenty of accomplishments, but the one I am most proud of is to see her champion as an advocate of underrepresented students in academia. So today she serves as the Assistant Dean for Access, Diversity, and Inclusion in STEM at the Graduate School of Princeton University. She's also has been recognized as one of the top 100 inspiring Hispanics and Latinx scientists in America. So I believe that today she definitely has so much experience and she understands what it feels like to be in these spaces, especially as a student of color. And so I can't speak more than I'm sure you guys will be able to tell how wonderful her presentation will be. So with that, please give us a virtual round of applause for Dr. Vanessa.
Well, thank you very much, Emily. I'm like, woof. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm glad that you're here later in the day. So I know that always takes a little bit extra effort. Let me make sure that everybody's seeing. Can you see my full presentation rather than my? Yes. Okay. Sometimes it wants to show the notes. So I'm excited to be here. I met Emily many months ago at another event, and she invited me to join to present at this program. So I'm very, very excited. So first, I always like starting with a gratitude slide. So gracias and thank you for showing up today. That means that you're curious, you want to learn something, and I hope that we just have a good time. I like to make these presentations, even though we're virtually, highly engaging. So I'm going to be using the chat or some Google spreadsheets so that we can all participate. Another one thing that I want to share as a professional disclosure is that anything that I mention, recommend, or suggest today are my own thoughts and not those of Princeton University. I'm representing me as an individual and a professional in higher education. And I just hope to provide some context right into how to navigate toxic environments. So I like to start saying by sharing a little bit about ourselves. So for this, we're going to use the chat. I know it's like we're in October already, believe it or not. Some of you might be just halfway through your semester, getting close to midterms. And for that reason, just use the chat to answer any of these questions. How are you today? Has anybody asked you that? Are you doing fine and you're tired, you're happy? Or how are things in the lab today? Were they great, frustrating? You make a little bit of a leeway in some experiments, or how was work or school? So for me, I can tell you it's a Tuesday and it feels like a Friday. But that's just a part of the semester and all the activities that we're hearing too. So I'll wait to see any answers pop in the chat. Anybody hungry? Ready for a snack? Ooh, Rachel made some progress in the lab. That's awesome. Leon says, I'm okay, and that's good. Tired. Ooh, a couple of tires. I'm doing good. So, and it's okay to feel a little bit all over the place. That's a human, that's being human. Suzanne says, tired but productive. Mohammed is feeling excellent, and Shandon as well. I love it. Love it. So thank you for sharing. This is just a way to, make sure you're following me. So you can keep those messages going. So a little bit about my story, because why am I giving this presentation. I mean, of course, I am a administrator in higher education, but I'm more than that. I'm a human being that cares a lot about others, and that's always been the case since I was a kid and I wanted to study medicine. I was always like, oh, I want to cure diseases. And then when I went to do pre-med, that's the same things in my head. I want to help people. And even though I have transitioned into different fields throughout my career, I still feel very close to the fact that I want to help people. So that's why I'm here. I identify as she, her, ella. Those are my pronouns. I'm identified as a Latina. I'm half Puerto Rican and half Colombian. I'm super proud of it. I'm also coming from a first-gen low-income background. Some of my favorite words are gratitude, authenticity, please, thank you, and help. And I would love to hear to read in the chat, what are some of your favorite words? Okay, what are some of your favorite words that you use all the time? I'm also like to say that I'm not afraid of trying new things. That doesn't mean that I don't get scared. I do, but I'm not afraid to try something new. And I don't take a no for an answer. Call me stubborn, but that's just my attitude. Don't tell me you cannot do it, because I'm gonna have a reaction to that. So some of the people's favorite words is never give up, keep going, authenticity, discipline, thank you, family, persistence. I love it. Ooh, we're all like very alike. I love this. So thank you for sharing some of that with me and with everybody. Okay, so in terms of my professional experience, Emily already made quite the summary of my professional career, except that I have a tiny little update. As of in November, I'll be the new Associate Vice Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at UPenn, and I'm very excited to be working with postdocs and faculty, in addition to my dear grad students. So I'm very excited about that new stage of my career. And thank you, Rachel, for the clap. So what's my leadership purpose? I mean, this is important for me to share, because it's not about just holding titles. It's personal. So I like to start saying that my intention is to approach problems or complex situations with curiosity and authenticity. You know, I also intend to build trust, especially in the environments that I work on. I like to say that I try my best to honor and respect other people's values and opinion, in providing other people in my community with accessibility or tools to navigate challenges authentically. And why do I take the time to share all of this? I just want you to know who I am, right? I know that we're not going to get to know each other right away during this hour, but I feel like if more people were sharing authentically who they are, what's their purpose, we could navigate a lot of spaces in a very different way, right? Rather than just saying, I'm just a grad student, I'm just a postdoc, I'm a faculty member, right? That is something that you do, but how do you find purpose on being those things? So I always put that up front. So, and most importantly, I have to stay humble, because I don't want to be right. You know, it's about to getting it right, making sure I'm curious, vulnerable, and be able to share with others. So why are we talking about toxic environments today? I know that the word is kind of like, ooh, what is she gonna say? So the reality is, and this is again my personal opinion, that many professionals, including myself, we are trained in very specific things. And in your case, you're mostly scientists, engineers, and you're trained to do that, but you don't necessarily get those management skills. You're not necessarily developing other areas of your professional career that could help you, right, make the best out of a team or the environment that you're working with. And the result of not having those tools, right, because I'm not saying that people cannot be good. I'm saying that people don't always have the tools, is that this leads to high tension environments, misunderstandings, conflicts, isolation, poor performance, or in the case of graduate students, this often makes students feel that they want to leave the program, you know? In my role, all the leadership roles that I have coached, more than 100 graduate students or postdocs in my career, and a lot of the conflicts often get resolved with clear communication. We're going to break that down, so don't you worry. Here. Okay, so we're going to participate again, and I'm going to exit for a second the presentation because I want to share a Google link with you guys. Let me copy my link. I'm going to put it on the chat because I want to ask all of you to share what are the traits of a positive work environment versus those traits of a negative work environment. Share with me what's in your head, what are your thoughts, and we'll take like a minute to answer. As you might see, nobody knows who you are. You're identified as a little animal on the Google Sheet, so don't feel afraid to share. You thought I was just gonna talk? No. Everybody's gonna speak their mind today. Okay, as people start filling, I'm gonna start reading. So some positive work environment traits that you guys are sharing is encouraging, collaboration, professional, clear communication, approachable, appreciation. Oh my goodness, I love that word. Boundaries, yes. Feedback, constructive feedback. Empathy, share goals. That's great. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And I'm gonna also read the side of what people consider, you guys consider a negative work environment, and that it's blame, being passive aggressiveness, bossy attitude, speaking over others. Ooh, that happens so much. Competitive, not accepting input, high workload, condescension, criticism, vindictive, pressure, complain, negative reinforcement, not encouraging, fear. Oh my goodness, the list just goes on and on and on. And the good thing, that the point of reflection by making you guys writing here is not just to tell me, right? But hopefully you can now realize that you're not the only one with these thoughts in your head or in your heart. Other people might be in high agreement with what's on the positive side versus what is on the negative side. So thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to go back to my full presentation. Okay. Organizing my slides. Okay. So you just shared these two. Thank you so much. And I'm going to give you some of my list, right? So that we can work over some of this. But you might already find that there's a lot of overlap. In terms of some of the positive aspects of a positive work environment, include good communication, constructive and consistent feedback, clear expectations, shared leadership, mentoring and guidance, clear values, vision, and goals. So as you can see, our list were pretty much almost up to par. And versus the toxic or negative side, which include lack or no feedback, unclear expectations, selfish leadership. And if you notice, the table that I'm presenting here is almost like you get quite the opposite from the positive side. And what I'm doing here by doing this presenting this slide is leveraging that no one in here is a true expert. We all have a good, clear idea of what is a good versus a bad environment, whether it's by experience or by bystander effect, but we all can be in agreement of what we consider this. So What are the impacts of a toxic environment, right? We know we don't live in a perfect world. And all those positive aspects, you see them, but you don't see them all the time, and you don't see them all together. And that's the reason why we need to learn how to leverage the other side. So what happens when we find ourselves on a toxic environment? What I see, especially with trainees, I mean, my experience coaching, mentoring many trainees, it's low productivity, low creativity, which is so important for your research. Withdrawal, isolation, low morale. Sometimes people want to quit or just frustrated, among many other things. So how do you deal with it? Okay, that's what you came here for. So step number one, and I'm including a little camera cartoon picture in here because I'm more than welcome. I'm more than happy to share this slide with you. Take a picture with your phone as you probably want to use some of this content to break down situations in the future. And we're going to practice a little bit. So I like to say that step number one should be reflect on the situation and let's break it down. I cannot tell you how many times the grad students have come through my door to tell me, I'm going to get kicked out of grad school. Oh my God, I cannot work with my advisor anymore. It's the end of the relationship. I don't think I'm cut out for this. So I always tell the student, okay, we're going to break this down because it sounds complex, of course, and you're not feeling good about it. So I always ask them to ask themselves the following questions. What was exactly said or done? You know, sometimes we need to separate a little bit about how we feel about it versus what happened, and that helps create a lot of clarity, right, on the situation, especially after some time has passed. And sometimes it's even helpful to write it down, right? Because you're not going to write all the details of a story in the way we tell it via oral communication. You're going to be a lot more concise about what is exactly that was said or done. The other question I like to ask other students, or even myself, I'm going to include myself, is like, how did that make me feel? You know, it's like, is there anything that I need to learn from this? Because it is super easy to be like, oh, you know, I'm being attacked. This is not fair. Like, they're not seeing my point of view. And sometimes it's about, is there something in here that I'm missing? So sometimes taking the time to reflect on that could be a way to help. Another strategy that you can do is using your curiosity. So you're a scientist. And use that not in a prosecution style, but you can go, let's say that something happened in the lab, it happened with a peer, and maybe you trust somebody else in the lab, and you can say, you know, are you aware? Have you noticed that this have happened in the past? You know, just be curious, so that way you can give yourself some perspective, right? About where are you situated in that situation, challenge, or problem, and see whether you can kind of collect a little more information. And the other thing about self-reflection on a challenge is, what is at risk if you don't say something about it? What is at risk if you are not able to address the situation? What's at risk? You know, is it your career? Is it just your friendship? Is it your ability to collaborate? So, you know, the list of self-reflection questions could go on and on and on. So this is just a short example. And the other thing is, like, what can you do to inspire or push for change? And I say this because sometimes when I coach grad students, they're like, I have a problem, right? And this problem is terrible and it's unsolvable. But it's like, is there an opportunity for this problem to be the center of something to inspire a change, right? Is it like a problem that is being perpetuated, and because nobody is addressing it? I'm not saying that you should go and take it on you to solve problems in your environment, but these are questions that you can ask yourself and willing to challenge yourself to know if you're willing to take that risk. So step number 2 is practice mitigating or addressing these issues, So we're gonna do this in a couple of case scenarios, but I'm sure, can I have a show of hands super quickly? How many of you have been or know of a toxic or difficult situation? Just a show of virtual hands. You have witnessed it, you have heard about it. Yeah, get a couple of good hands. You probably have been confused by it. You're like, what did just happen here? I'm not sure. Oh, wow. So I guess I have at least 50% of the participants raising their hands. Thank you for being so vulnerable and open about it. So, if you were to think of that situation and you work through all this process of asking yourself, doing the self-reflection, it's like, what would you say, right? And we're going to practice, and don't worry. It's like, I just want you to have in mind a situation in your life. And the other thing about practicing mitigating or addressing issues is that this is not easy. So how you control the nerves or the fear? Because I'm going to tell you, I'm the first one to say, I'm non-confrontational. It gives me pain in my heart to have to go to somebody and tell them that they make me feel bad or that something is not right, because it's not in my nature. So how do we deal with that? Don't worry, we're going to get to it. So for that said, we're going to practice a couple of case scenarios because I want you to know that you have the knowledge. And for that, I'm going to require some of you to volunteer to read out loud, maybe using your most dramatic voice. So can I have a hand raised? We have 4 case scenarios. So who wants to read number 1? And I'm going to animate that. Who says, yo, I can do this? I know it's a little scary. You were not expecting to do that. Okay, Emily, thank you so much. Let me, oops. Okay, you can get started.
Okay. Yesterday, I met with my advisor to discuss the progress of my research. However, all I heard was that I was not working enough and that I should consider if this is the career for me. I don't know what to do. I was working late all weekend to prepare these results. I'm so frustrated. Perhaps my advisor is right and I should quit.
Thank you, Emily. And since you read it, or anybody, I'm going to take at least two hands, 2 volunteers to give Susan, in this case scenario, some feedback about this. This is not uncommon that a friend came to you and is complaining about their advisor. What would you tell Susan in terms of practicing, like how to process this information? Will you have any advice for Susan? Would you say, okay, we need to break this down maybe? It's like, how do we break this down? So tell me again, what happened, when it happened, what was the progress? Was there something that was discussed before this meeting that the advisor is implying that Susan was not working enough? Like, what else would you tell Susan to help kind of like break this situation?
I feel like if I volunteer, it's
Sure.
because I've given this presentation before. But if this was my friend, I would suggest Susan to first understand what their deliverables were from last week's meeting. Does she have any kind of like notes from those meetings to hold accountable, not just herself, but also the advisor of what they had previously discussed? I would also try to maybe make her see the situation from her advisor's perspective. I know that sometimes I have like meetings with a mentor, and they're very busy. Their agenda's super packed, that when they have to meet with me, they forget what we talked about before. So maybe that's one of the reasons why they don't understand why a lot of progress wasn't made. I could also see it from, like, if this was my work sometimes relies on coding for hours, but the actual progress that I get to present is very little. So maybe elaborating a little bit on, this is what I did behind the scenes, would appreciate if maybe that could be a little acknowledged in there, would also help.
Yeah, no, that's amazing advice. So thank you for volunteering, Emily. And what I would say is that, you know, Susan just got some critical feedback, right? And the supervisor was just discussing that there was not being enough progress. But Susan was in her head like, oh my God, I might have to, I'm frustrated, I'm gonna quit. Well, I'm working so hard. So what I see as the opportunity here is to come back to a meeting, whether it's hours later or a day later or a week later. I take my time because I need to find my words. Again, I'm a non-confrontational person, so I don't want the person on the other side to take it the wrong way. So I would say, last time when we had a meeting, I actually felt a little bit like I put all these hours, but yet what I heard is that I was not making enough projects. So I would like an opportunity to understand what were the expectations, and perhaps we needed to create a more clear timeline, right? And what are the expectations within a week of weekly meetings or monthly meetings, and whether there was probably something that needed to be prioritized, but maybe we're not in the same page about the priorities. So things like that open an opportunity to ask, I felt this way and I don't like feeling this way, but that means that I need to clarify, right? I love what I do, but maybe I need more help. Maybe I understand coding, but maybe this particular area needs a little help and I just need somebody to support me. So it's just about finding what are the opportunities. So who wants to read case scenario number 2? And this is about boundaries. Somebody mentioned boundaries in the positive versus negative list. Somebody wants to, I can call your names too. If we were in person, how about Raul? Oh, Michelle, Michael. Thank you.
Okay. Everyone in my research group, including my advisor, is averaging 60 hours a week in the lab. No one told me about this before, and now I find myself working the same amount of hours. I have a dependent at home and other duties to tend to, and I don't know how to ask if I can work just the standard 40 hours.
Okay, we heard this before. Any thoughts, Michael, on this, since you were speaking?
Oh, this is a really difficult situation.
I know, that's what we're practicing.
Yes, I should disclose that I'm a professor emeritus, so I've seen many cases of high expectations for work, especially in some lab sciences. Yeah, I think that this goes back to initial expectations about what kind of work is expected, but I think there might be some individualization here. The advisors do need to understand that students do have lives outside of the lab, but it's hard to change expectations once they're already set by a group. I'd be very interested in finding out what other people think here.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing some of your thoughts. Anybody else? This is a very universal issue that I see in a lot of places. Okay, Rachel, yes?
Yeah, I think it might be a good idea to kind of gently bring it up to the advisor, because they might not be aware that they have a dependent at home or other duties. And so there might just be like a lack of some of that foundational communication there of, making the advisor aware of some other responsibilities or things that are going on. And then having that conversation about how they can still achieve all of their goals within the week while working more manageable hours for them personally.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. And in the chat, somebody is also sharing that prioritizing your dependent is extremely important. And what I imply by adding this example is that, sometimes some environments will create a set amount of pressure or expectations, but sometimes, believe it or not, people don't even talk. People just cross-promote, oh, everybody here works 60 hours. Expectations is that you're here all weekend long. And the reality is that, yes, maybe there's a very special week when everybody's under pressure and maybe 60 hours were needed, or maybe a weekend work is needed. But at the same time, there's an opportunity to say self-advocacy, right? And say being able to articulate and say this work, like for example, something I wish I've known when I was younger and in grad school and in this situation is that I would have go to my advisor and say, the work that we're doing here is very important. And I get it that sometimes, given the nature of what we're doing, that requires some extended hours sometimes, but this is not something that I can do every week, all the weeks. So finding an opportunity to say, these are some of my obligations at home, or this is something else that I do in my free. It's important for me to self-care, take care of my mental health, my physical health, the things that you don't have to give explanations. What's important is that you share that you value the work, that you understand what it takes to do the work, but that, having to measure everybody to extend their hours, it's probably beyond what every single individual can do. So it's just an example, but it's one that happens common. Thank you so much. So how about case scenario 3? This is going to be about dealing with a no at all. I'm going to show you what it says so that I can get a volunteer, because I get it. It's kind of nerve-wracking not to know what you're about to read. Can I get a volunteer? How about Ronald or Disha or Mohammed? That's a good thing about knowing your names.
Sure, I can do this one.
Thank you, Disha.
My research mentor is a busy person. They know so much and I'm so lucky to be working for them. However, the other day I was attempting to repeat a process on my own, and when I was presenting the strategy, I was received with a blunt and loud comment, "That's not right. That's not how I do things. You're wrong and you must not understand what I taught you."
Whew. That's a loaded one, right?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this, Disha?
I mean, I'm assuming if I were in this situation, as opposed to having a friend say this to me, potentially, and I think it really depends on the advisor as well, to a certain extent, if this is just their teaching style, which sounds concerning. I don't know if there's a good solution beyond getting someone to mediate, but trying to say, I must have misunderstood, could you please show me again? Or I would like to still share what I found or my thoughts, and then we can discuss I guess, your way again or something like that.
Right. And, I'm sure if I ask for a raise of hands, how many of you have been in a similar situation, you probably have heard it, seen it, or been there. And the thing is that sometimes when we are in this, when you're learning research, sometimes you're in a one-on-one type of scenario. And we create processes, we create protocols, right? And we know that if you've done it long enough, they work because you have followed that set of instructions every single time. So it could be difficult when you're teaching somebody else and then you're proposing something new and there's that resistance, right? In this case, Cole is sharing that this person was just a little more than persistent. It just called them like, hey, you're wrong, right? That's not how I do it. And not necessarily providing opportunities like, like, that's not exactly how I teach you, like tell me more. And this is a difficult situation because you're being called out, and that's when your imposter syndrome just kicks in. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm really not that good or not that great. Like, why am I doing things wrong? And that doesn't mean you're doing things wrong. So one way that I would coach a grad student or a trainee in this situation is to find an opportunity to talk with this person. And I think it's hard to react in that moment, especially if you're surrounded by people. One way to mitigate, if you're called out in a lot of people, you can say the word ouch, and that signal, you can signal like that hurt you and you did not like that comment without using a lot of our immediate words that you might regret immediately. And I said, or you can say like, well, yes, I did things differently, and I would like to share why my approach is a little different and how does this can be maybe a more efficient way to do it, or maybe I cut the time. So, and by finding an opportunity for you to articulate on some of your reasons. But again, if you're looking for an immediate reaction about what happened in there, saying the word like ouch, or if you're a bystander, you're seeing this happening in front of you, you can do a similar thing. And that is just signaling that, like kind of like a little checkpoint. Anybody else? Any thoughts? And again, I'm not here to be a know-it-all, so I would love to hear more thoughts. Maybe not so many. Okay. Okay, we can move to scenario number 4. This is a scenario when the confrontation is about he said, she said, and who is right. Can I get a volunteer?
I can.
Okay, use your dramatic voice in this one.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my advisor forgets the thing we discussed in the last few meetings or even last year. Now I'm being told to do something totally different. She's out of her mind. I'm confused and afraid that I have not done as expected, and now I feel that my role is in jeopardy.
Thank you, Sehao. Any thoughts on this? Yes, Michael?
So this is clearly a case of lack of communication. Having been the professor, I certainly forget things from one week to the other. So I can certainly empathize both ways. So yes, as Raul was just saying, you need to take notes, but also after each meeting, it's helpful to for the student to summarize the meeting in an email or something, so there's documentation of here's what I understand, and so there's opportunity for the advisor to clarify what's expected. But it is also important for the student not to completely catastrophize, and that there's probably some middle ground here as well. So there's the practical thing is to document in email or Slack or whatever communication channel you use, but also sort of self-regulation, we would call it. That's the technical term for how you would cope with emotions in the moment.
That is great advice. And that's exactly what I was gonna say. You know, when I hear students saying something along the lines of this note, I have to remind them, I mean, I'm not here to justify anybody, right? Or kind of like grade people's managing skills, but the truth is that many faculty advisors are managing several people. And even if the research group was small, it's very hard for any human being to remember every single thing and to keep track of the priorities set from one meeting to another meeting, or from one year to the second, or mixing up, right? Because sometimes in the same research group, you may have related research projects, and some things might be overlapping, some things might be very unique. But just as Michael mentioned, keeping notes of those meetings, like something that works a lot for students I coach is that if this is something that's happening repeatedly, let's say that not just happened once, okay, once, maybe that's fine. But if it's something chronic, is that you can start negotiating, right, with your advisors. I think it's important for me to walk out of here knowing clearly what we discussed. So after this meeting, I'm gonna just send you a super quick email with 2-3 bullet points about the things that you needed to prioritize until the next meeting. So that's one way to deal with that. Shahal, do you have something to say? Shahal,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, so I can echo Michael's point. I can provide another thing is that from my experience, that to keep notifying your professor your like research progress is to keep searching for help. So I think we some psychologists did some experiments before that people tend to remember the one who searched help from him, who received help from him, that he tend to remember this person. So if you try to keep searching, asking something, so how do I do that? What should I do next to professor? And professor will kind of think that you're caring about your project, and second, you're keeping reminding professor your the research status, and that can make him or her remember your first your personality, and second your research program. So you don't worry about these things.
Right, and yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
Thank you very much for participating. And the thing is, like, again, going back to the framework, and Emily, I'll go back to you in a second, to the framework of breaking down the situation. Okay, what was said to me, right? Is this something that's just happening to me? Be curious, right? Is it happening to everybody in the lab? Maybe the whole lab can then be in the same page and say, okay, maybe we all together can start helping our advisor keep track of our projects. Maybe there's an app that we can use. Maybe there's just meeting notes. And this is the situation where, what can change, right? If you create an opportunity to, not something to figure things for yourself, but maybe as a group, as a team. This is part of grad school. The growth in grad school is not only related to your science and your publications, it's the maturity that you will also gain, to work with others, to navigate very complex, leadership styles or differences in how people approach things. And you being able to take, even though if it feels like a very, very small leadership role, to create a process to help yourself, you might be helping many and help, hopefully, the career of many other grad students in your lab. Yes, Emily?
I think you kind of hit some of the points that I was going to add. How about asking other students who are under your mentor or advisor? I would say I personally have had lately a lot of health issues that are affecting my research progress. And so at first I didn't know how to just approach the conversation with my advisor. And instead I ended up asking another student that my advisor also advises and explaining to her sort of how I'm feeling, how I'm still willing to make progress. It's just going a little slower. And she gave me advice on how to talk to my advisor. She reminded me I've had problems like this before. I spoke to him this certain way. I reminded him about these things, and so helpful to just have had that conversation. And then going into sort of like some of the tools that you could use to sort of remind your advisors about things that have happened before. I wouldn't say I'm the type of student who writes the email after, or I have like an app where I share communication with my advisor. Instead, what I do is after, like for each meeting I have with my advisor, after catching up personally, I start the conversation by saying, so recapping from last week, we talked about this, this, and this. And so these are my updates for point A. I would like to discuss this now, or these are the questions I have, and how can I move forward with this, so that my advisor kind of has that moment to refresh up on like, well, what did we really talk about last week, and what's new this week that we need to talk about?
That's great. Thank you so much. And Shahal, do you have another comment, or this is a leftover raise hand from before?
No, I don't have that.
Okay. So yeah, these are all great comments. And the thing is that, you know, it's not about making anybody right or wrong. It's about that, you know, creating a system of integrity. Another symptom that I see quite a bit in grad students or trainees is that some projects can get challenging. And when they get challenging or very difficult, or you don't have clarity, or you don't have the tool or the resources to solve a problem, you get stuck. You lose motivation. And it's possible that you might even stop working on it, right? So when it gets time back again to meet with the advisor, what I notice is that some grad students avoid talking about it, thinking, oh, I'm going to figure this out. And then another week goes back, and then a couple months more go by, and then the advisor is like, what's going on? Why you're not doing this? So not allowing the situation to be interpreted for what it's not is not, it's not helping anybody. I think it's important that when you meet with advisors to say, you know, there are a couple of things that are going great, but there are some other things that are not going great, and I'm stuck. And I might need some clarity or help, or I need more time. And that way you avoid the other person thinking, or your advisor or anybody mentoring you or training you to be like, oh, this person doesn't know, or this person is not motivated to do it, but rather like, I need more help and I need support. So that solves about 50% of the conflicts that grad students have. So, and in case scenario number 5, there's nothing to read. So, but I'm going to say it out loud. I mean, if this happens all the time, people are asked sometimes to do additional work, more than you are expecting to do. And sometimes with a very aggressive deadline, right? Grant deadlines or paper deadlines, all of a sudden you need to scramble and I do a whole lot. So I want to talk a little bit about the art of saying no and how to negotiate a yes, because it is not humanly possible to have everything that you have on your hands to do, and in top of that, push all this extra work with a very aggressive deadline. So what I've learned in my career, and something that I coach a lot of people on, is that you say, like, I would love to help. I understand why this is important to you and why this takes priority. But before I say yes, you know, what else am I going to say no to? So when you say no, it's when a negotiation starts. You can say, no, I cannot do this right now, if in addition to that, you want me to do all these other things. Or if I say yes to this, then what are you willing to say no to? And a lot of grad students do not feel that they have the right to negotiate. And negotiating means that doesn't mean, and I'm not implicating that you're never going to do it. Okay, I'm going to forget about this other project, but it's negotiating. Okay, there's some priorities, you know, rather than keep saying yes to everything and yes to everything and yes to everything. I've been so guilty of that in my life, but now I've learning the art of saying no and negotiating a yes. And you can do this the other way around, right? Also, when you're trying to convince other people to support you in some ideas. So I'm going to try to finish my slide so that we can go to a Q&A. So there's a million case scenarios that we can discuss, but we're not going to solve them all today. But if you feel like you're in your own institution, you know who's got your back, because Vanessa is not there all the time, and though I'm happy to be your mentor, anywhere you are, you have friends, so don't forget about them. When you are at school, you're likely to have an academic advisor, a program director, department leader, or a diversity officer, or some other administrator that are willing to lend an ear and to provide some resources. When things get a little dicey, sometimes environments can get toxic to the point that you don't know exactly, that your friends cannot help you and you're not necessarily getting a lot of the answers that are helping you. The OMDUS office, almost every university campus has one, to my knowledge. And what they are is that they're confidential, off-the-record resource appointed to facilitate the resolution of disputes or conflicts or relationships, right? Sometimes you feel like you have reached a point when you cannot just talk to the other person because it's not working, communication is not flowing. And thank you so much, Stephen, for sharing that. This is a confidential resource, and I wish more people knew about this. They are available for staff, faculty, students, and you don't have to wait until the problems are category 5. It can be just if you're like, I'm not so sure about this. That's good enough to talk with a professional. And also, if let's say that you're being employed, you're not going to be a student the rest of your life. You're doing an internship, you're somewhere else doing a co-op or just moving away from college. You always have the HR office, the human resources office as a support. So once again, how to manage toxic environments, it comes down to knowing yourself and what are your patterns, okay? You might be the dramatic one, like the person that every time something happens, they're like, oh my God, let me tell you, and you change your voices or you're impersonating. That might be a good sign that maybe you're already a little irritated by a situation, right? Maybe you're the kind of person that's like, oh, this happened to me again. This happens to me all the time. Or maybe you are in a situation when you're like, I don't know exactly what happened. Like, was that something bad? Was that something good? Well, I'm not so sure. Some people will go into isolation or stay quiet and say nothing, hoping that the problem will disappear. And some people just get straight up angry. So I think it's important to know who you are as a person and how you react, and just checking that, right? Doing your own process. Why do I react this way, right? And this is not like me. When you're starting to realize that there is a behavior pattern that doesn't feel like you, that means that there's something affecting you. And it's important just to recognize that this is me or not me, and how that is impacting your own behavior. One thing that I will recommend, because it doesn't help, I'm not telling you not to be defensive, right? You have the right to defend yourself, but I would say don't not right away. Find an opportunity to share your point of view or rationale at a better time. And at least I cannot be defensive right away because I'm non-confrontational. I'm not the kind of person that will go back at it like with the words, because then I might regret it. But, I find my opportunity. You cannot possibly prepare for all scenarios, but hopefully this little workshop have given you some ideas on how you will create your own responses. Practicing understanding is very important, right? Let's say you're new to a group and all of a sudden you're feeling like, oh, this might be a toxic environment. I think it's important to express your curiosity and ask other members of that environment to help them understand, right? And ask them for examples. Another recommendation is do not gossip, Sometimes, I know, when we're hurt, when we're stressed, when we're frustrated, when we're angry, we just want to go and tell somebody, like, you won't believe this thing, right? And I know that might feel like an immediate relief, but I would always advise, take a minute to process, to write it, break it down, right? What is exactly what happened? Talk to Vanessa, talk to Stephen or somebody, right? Any of your peers. And at the end of the day, it's always good to understand your rights as a student, an intern, or as an employee. Every year, universities give yourself a grad student guide or staff guide. These are like extremely big PDFs or small booklets, but a lot of people don't understand their rights. So oftentimes they don't understand that there's a lot of people in your system ready to help you, like ready to have an open door and be like, oh yeah, let's talk about it. I want to hear you, you know, and that is so important. And students just feel like they're helpless. They feel like I'm just a grad student and have everything to lose. No, you have universities are the center of universities are the students. So we want to help you. How to dismantle toxic environments? Always try to identify traits of positive and negatives in your environment, right? If you feel like all your listing is negative, you have to take a second to think of the positive ones. So make a little list. Discuss the impacts of that toxicity in your group and find the opportunities to address. Examine organizational practices that can contribute and combat the toxic environment. Is there best practices somewhere? Try to sometimes not go just with the problem, right? Go to your advisor and say, I cannot stand this postdoc. I don't want to talk. I don't want to work with this person. You know, instead you can go like, you know, it's been very difficult to work with this person. And maybe here's a solution. Maybe here's some alternatives. Maybe we need to address it. And you know, always include considerations. You know, if the situation is truly irritating, I'm not telling you that you should withstand not feeling good in an environment if you're not thriving, if you know, are really, it's a toxic environment for you. Always think about it, you know, what are your potential solutions, right? And if leaving, it's the best plan after you consulted with your mentors and whatnot. I would say always make a plan. Make a plan before you trigger. Let's say you need to switch labs or you need to switch projects. Always go at it with a plan and not just like, I cannot do this, right? So I'm trying to read the chat quickly. Okay, so we're just sharing it. So my take-home message, you're not alone. You got this. You're a human being and you deserve to be treated with respect. Use your research skills to understand complex situations. Be curious. Don't feel toxicity. Don't gossip. Find an appropriate time or words to address a situation. And when you not solve it yourself, go to your leaders. But most importantly, always be proud of who you are, where you come from, and who you represent. I think it's very important to know that the different situations impact us at a different level because of who we are. And I think it's always important to articulate whether our point of view is different because of our cultural background, of our identities. And I think it's important to bring that forward, right? Because who we are matters and we're not robots. We're not all meant to be the same. So with that, I'm gonna stop here. I have my another gratitude slide. Thank you for staying with me and participating. Here's my Twitter account. I love answering questions to the world because that way more people will benefit. And with that, I'll stop. And I think we might have like, oh, I'm over time. I don't know if we have questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Round of applause, virtual round of applause. Thank you so much, Dr. Gonzalez-Perez, for your presentation. It's always beautiful. I loved it again. And I think this second time watching it and hearing from you, I learned new things. So just a quick announcement before I open up the podium for questions. If you really enjoyed this webinar, or if you have any other thoughts that you would like to provide us for feedback, please go ahead and fill out the survey that will be listed in the chat. We highly appreciate your feedback so that we can host more seminars in the future. And if you fill one out, you enter a raffle for gift. So please, please, please provide us with your feedback. If you previously already attended one of our prior seminars, then the feedback form is about the same. Just make sure to document that you attended this specific webinar today. So with that, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and ask.
I want to acknowledge Raul's comments in the chat. So yeah, when Emily asked me if I would do this, I was like, of course. Again, I don't know if I'm being helpful, but I love sharing at least what I know. And if that changes like this little bit, your perspective or the way you navigate environments, then I'm helping people. I'm fine. I'm doing my purpose, like following my purpose. Maybe I can ask people to share in the chat. What is your purpose? Whether it's professional or personal. I know that's a loaded question, right? Because what is purpose? Thank you, Michael. I try to help students achieve their professional dreams. That's great. And I know it's not easy. Zeynep says, becoming a better version of myself every day. Beautiful. And the reason why I ask this question is because we don't allow ourselves to answer this question ever or as often as we should. We just go, go, go. We're like, I need to go to school. I need to give a class. I need to do the next paper. It's like, what is our purpose? Samuel shares to address this iniquitous experience by BIPOC and predominant white institutions at the systemic level. And with you, Samuel, yes. And even if you're not coming out with your own purpose now, I hope that really you take this with you, because in our professional careers, it's important to remind ourselves of why we do what we do, why we spend the energy or the ATPs on trying to solve a complex situation. Why do we wait? Why do we sometimes feel we cannot wait? And it's all a matter of reminding yourself what's your purpose, and your purpose can grow, can change over time, and that's perfectly fine. I don't want people to feel like, yeah, like I lost myself. If you feel like you have lost yourself, hopefully we're rerouting you back into finding yourself.
Well, with that, if there are no more questions, I don't want to take more of your time, of course, so we can conclude the webinar. And thank you once again for willing to host this with us. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Emily, for being such a good leader for your peer graduate students and some of the other leadership that joined us. Thank you. I'm very honored. Thank you.